Ladies and gentlemen, as you might have noticed, right now the progressive left is absolutely melting down over President Trump's tariffs. But folks, what if I told you that almost every single senior ranking Democrat in the past has actually explicitly advocated for the exact same sort of tariffs that President Trump just imposed? That's right. Once again, the progressive left is being about as hypocritical as you can possibly be. So today, ladies and gentlemen, this video is going to be dedicated to absolutely exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the progressive left. So you know what? What do you say we start things off with none other than Nancy Pelosi? Take a look.
How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit and loss of jobs for the American worker? And how much more dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, I will not endorse the status quo? As I mentioned, it's about jobs, proliferation, and human rights. And there are those who say we shouldn't link human rights and trade and proliferation and trade. I disagree. But if we just want to take up this issue on the basis of economics alone, indeed, China should not receive most favored nation status.
Well, would you look at that? That was Nancy Pelosi in 1996 saying that doing business with China is pretty much just directly supporting their human rights violations, as well as just completely screwing over American workers. She also said that she was unhappy with America's economic status quo, undermining American labor and shipping jobs overseas. Now, if only there was someone in modern day, right this very moment, who is trying to destroy that very same anti-American, economically suicidal status quo. Maybe someone named Donald Trump? But okay, folks, Nancy Pelosi isn't the only Democrat that we're going to be talking about today. In fact, our next clip features none other than Bernie Sanders. Take a look.
Further, what they have said is that we need to not worry about manufacturing in America because what we should establish is a policy of unfettered free trade. We don't need tariffs. What we need is to allow corporate America the freedom to throw American workers out on the street, people who are making 15, 20, 25 bucks an hour, healthcare, pensions, throw them out on the street because somehow, Madam President, we are going to create wealth in America and good-paying jobs in America as we shut down plants, we move to China, corporations there pay workers 20, 30 cents an hour, and we bring the product back into this country.
So yeah, folks, that was Bernie Sanders in 2008 explicitly advocating for imposing trade tariffs. Why? In an attempt to protect the American worker. That sounds familiar, if only that were happening right this very moment. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, what do you say we hear from another Democratic senator? What do you guys say? We take a listen to what Chuck Schumer has to say about all of this.
Look, I think the president's doing the right thing. China has been taking advantage of us for two decades. They're stealing our intellectual property, which means stealing our good-paying jobs. And I, frankly, am closer on this issue, not on many, but on this issue with President Trump than I was with Presidents Bush or Obama, because they did nothing to tell China off. Now, China, of course, will respond. But if they know we're strong and we're not going to back off, they will back off. They have far more to lose than we do. They have a $300 billion trade surplus with us. So I'm looking out, number one, for jobs. You know, if General Electric moves jobs to China, they're not unhappy, but my New York workers in Schenectady are unhappy. And so you can't let the international business companies who don't give a hoot about where their factories are govern this. You have to do what's good for the American worker.
So, folks, that clip is absolutely damning. Not only did Chuck Schumer explicitly endorse President Trump's tariff policies in 2018, but he also explained and articulated exactly why Trump's tariffs actually work. You see, when these Democrats think it's okay to stop lying for a moment, even they acknowledge that leveraging trade tariffs can be a hugely beneficial thing. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed, but Chuck Schumer actually directly mentioned none other than the legendary Barack Hussein Obama. I wonder what he has had to say about trade tariffs.
It's also proper for advanced economies like the United States to insist on reciprocity from nations like China that are no longer solely poor countries, to make sure that they're providing access to their markets and that they stop taking intellectual property and hacking our servers.
Reciprocity from places like China? That sounds a little bit familiar. Now, folks, as you can see, the Democrats have been talking about trade tariffs for decades. In fact, it used to be one of their biggest policy points. Believe it or not, the Democrats used to actually make an attempt to protect American workers. Interestingly enough, it was always the neocon rhinos that were pushing back against trade tariffs, always fighting on behalf of free market economics, even though every other country on the planet was ripping us off. But in the year 2025, now that the evil dictator Donald Trump is pushing for trade tariffs, now the Democrats have had a complete and total change of heart. Because as you all know, fighting against every single one of President Trump's policies is more important to the Trump derangement syndrome Democrats than maintaining even a semblance of ideological consistency. But hey, I'll tell you what, this is all going exactly according to President Trump's plan. Because now, the entire country can't help but realize just how absolutely hypocritical and insane the progressive left truly has become. Seriously, at this point, President Trump could give his official endorsement to drinking water and breathing air, and you just know that the Democrats would come out in opposition. Drinking water makes you a fascist, and breathing air is actually deeply rooted in racism. In truth, the progressive left has just become so obviously insane that even left-wing voters are beginning to give up on the party altogether. There's a reason that the congressional Democrats have a national approval rating of just 21% right now. It's because all they do is lie and flip-flop whenever they think it's politically expedient. You know, even if you have bad opinions, there's still something to be said for being consistent with your bad opinions. At least you're consistent. But these Democrats flip-flop more than a fish out of water. If you're a Democrat voter, you go to bed one day thinking that your party stands for one thing, then by the time you wake up the next day, your party stands for something else altogether. Seriously, I'm surprised that these Democrat voters don't have whiplash, but as we said a moment ago, every single day, there are fewer and fewer Democrat voters. And it's because of the nonstop lying, gaslighting, and voter manipulation. Americans have finally woken up across the country and realized the truth about the Democratic Party. Folks, here's the takeaway. The progressive left is absolutely insane, completely hypocritical, and now every single person in America knows it. Now, folks, before we wrap up with today's video, I want to say real quick that I've actually gone ahead and made a community Facebook page where I'll be posting additional news and updates as it relates to all of this. So, hey, if you guys use Facebook, check out the pinned comment down below and give that page a follow. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for this video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there. As I like to say, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton with my daily struggle here on YouTube. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.